Our last skill is the string splice, and I'm going to use these pieces of electrical wire just because they're big enough for all of us to really see. And then after I make the splice with this, I'll make the splice with the broken piano wire. So again, you use your vice grips, and because this is big, I'm going to have the wire extending past the vice grips. But typically, if you were using the piano wire, your wire would just go a little past halfway in the vice grips. But this is just for demo. You grab your wire with the vice grips. Your first motion has your wrist turning the wire towards you, and you want to make a loop that's just big enough. So my wrist is turning the wire towards me. I'm making a loop that is big enough for this wire to go through. I release the vice grips. Then with the tail that your vice grips was just holding on to, with it being down, you grab the wire and you give it a bend so that your loop is about at a 45-degree angle from the wire. So then you take, this is your spliced piece, and we're going to pretend the black piece is the part that went on the piano. You thread your splice onto the piano wire. Again, you grab it with the vice grips, and this time our wrist motion is going to be away from us. So I'm going to make this loop away from me, and I'm going to make a loop that hopefully is just big enough for this wire to go through. So there's my loop. I'm going to again take that bend and bend it downward so that the loop and the wire are about at 45 degrees. Then, let's see here, this was they fell apart, so I have to put them back together again here, like this. Then you take your the splice wire and put it in the hole of the other and draw it together. And it should look like this, and the main thing is that your two tails are pointing opposite directions. So the first bend, the wrist goes to you, the second bend, the wrist goes away from you. So now we're going to do it with our piano wire. Yeah, we better shut the door. I'm gonna have to tighten up these vice grips quite a bit. All right, so my first bend is on the wire from my canister. This is the wire that I'm going to be splicing on. It needs to be tighter. I kind of move this canister around because anytime you work with wire, you want to work so that the bend of the wire is working in your favor. So I'm going to be bending this towards me, and this curve of the wire is going to work in my favor in this position. So now I want this to be halfway in the, there we go, halfway into the vice grips. Again, I'm going to make this look easy, but it's not. I'm going to bend this towards me, making a very small loop, bending it towards me, towards me. Okay, there's my loop. The tail is at a right angle. Tail is down. I bend this down so that we have, can you see that 45-degree angle? I put that onto the piano wire. I now take the piano wire, grab it with the vice grips, same amount in the, I'm going to make the vice grips a little tighter. The tightness of the vice grips on the wire is critical for the success of this. And now my wrist motion is going to go away from me, making that same nice little loop, just the size that the wire can go through. There it is. The part that was held by the vice grips is down, and now I bend it down so you have that 45-degree angle. I'm going to make that angle a little bit more pronounced. Then the part that is coming from the wire reel, I'm going to cut a generous amount off. Thread it into, and my tails are not going the opposite. There they are. Drawing it together. Can you see that? Okay. Now we're back to making the coil. On this one, I'm now getting my wire on the bridge pins. I'm gonna actually make this slightly smaller because quite a bit of wire will draw up from that coil loop. So I'm about halfway into the pin with my fingers rather than being on the edge. It's about an 1/8 inch, but it makes a huge difference. So that's at the edge, that's in the middle. Cutter's right up against my hands, snip it off. Find that tuning pin. Make the coil 2.5 turns. 1, 2, half. Vice grips. Pull the becket out of the pin. I don't want to ruin my coil in the process of doing this. There it is. Put the coil, and on this one I'm going to have to stretch the coil back just a little bit, but I like that. Onto the pin. Oh, I didn't line up my becket hole. I like my becket holes to be front and back, so I'm going to back this out slightly so that you'll see. The hole here, which means that the opposite side is now back here. Put it in. This one's not cooperating as much, so I'm gonna it's good for you to see this. I'm gonna try. Yes, it pushes all the way in. And now I use the lifter, level the coil, start putting tension on it. Double check. I need to put it over the bridge pins, but I don't have enough. I have enough looseness that I was able to do that easily. I look at the spacing here. It looks good. Lift it up. I'm about halfway. I will push the becket in again. The coil, the knot is still looking good. It's sideways, but you can see I don't know if you can come up close enough to this, that you can see that the tails are pointing the opposite direction. One's going up, one's going down. So that looks good. So then I'm going to now stand to the side so that if my splice fails, I'm sideways to it. It's not going to spring that way or this way. So then I just that's good. So this coil or the splice would probably get an A- because the two tails are slightly different in length. This tail is a little shorter, this tail is a little longer, and that had to do with how much of the tail was in the vice grips and maybe a slightly different size in loop, but more had to do with the vice grips. But it would be a completely 100% passable string splice. We're looking for no kinks in the nice round coils. I need to clean up the coil on the pin a little bit just to level it up. So that's where I use this tool. And get my coils all very close together. That looks good. And that's the string splice.